I'm Margaret Mosier-Swain. I live in Seabright, and been here for about 8 years, and probably been painting for maybe half of that. Really brought me into a fabulous community. I have met so many new people. And the studio tour, unfortunately, this year was a little condensed. So I'm introducing my paintings with a few samples and with my co-painters and co-photographers. And I don't know, acrylic. And I'd have to say the thing about my artwork is it's almost all about color more than anything. I can't help but just embrace colors, which are probably beyond really natural.
Good morning, I'm Maureen MacArthur, and I also live in Seabright, just around the corner from Margot and across the street from Pat. And I moved here 2 years ago with the dream of having a little seaside cottage with an art studio to learn to paint, and I've been painting and enjoying it immensely. I paint completely in acrylic. Medium, it's for the, what do I paint? Animals, seascapes, eggs, just rusty hinges, owls, yeah. Just whatever inspires me at the time. So.
Hi, I'm Beth Newman. I also live in Seabright. I've been here for 14 years. I moved here from Atlanta, Georgia. I've been taking photographs basically my whole life, but once we moved to Nova Scotia, I had more time and more subject matter to take. We spend our winters down south typically, and so I see a lot of seabirds down south. And in fact, we see a lot of great blue herons, and when I see them here, I think, is that the same one? So down south, I take a lot of bird photos. Up here, I kayak around the bay and take a lot of lobster boats and whatever else I see.
So these are just samples of the few things I've done this year. As you can see, like I said, I like color. So, but it's funny, this actually literally was like this. The sunsets we have here are phenomenal. This one is more about me using my colors. It came out of my head. It's a night shot that I worked on, and it's one of my personal favorites. I don't know if it speaks to anybody, but I love it. This is sort of a new series I'm starting, and those are my sneakers, and I just put them in different places, and it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying that. And this was just, something I saw, so that's kind of how I paint, and I really enjoy it. Maureen?
Okay, so I've done 2 series because I've only been painting for 2 years, really. So I do one called Extravaganza, which is basically raw eggs, and those seem to be a favorite for people. I did a series called I See You, which is just one eye of a different animal. So I've done a series of cows and chickens and roosters and whatnot, but these are 2 eagles that I did. People don't like them because they say they're scary, but anyway, I don't think they're that scary. What else do I have? I have a series I'm doing now on the little studio that we work for, or we show out of. And this is like a little rusty hinge, and I call this I Can Handle It. So it's just a series of hinges and door handles.
That's at 43 Sunrise? That's
43 Sunrise, yeah, that's the bunkie, yeah. So
nice.
I hope to do it in a bigger scale. This was just sort of a dry run. But, and then, of course, everybody has to do Peggy's Cove, but everybody tells me everybody does that, so I'm trying to get away from it. Exactly. Anyway, that's it.
Okay, I have my photos printed on canvas, so a lot of times people think they're paintings. This is a cute little turquoise sailboat that was in Cove, which is here in Seabright. It was on a foggy day. And this I took kayaking. Which is a lobster boat that was nearby anyway. And then this is it's called a great egret, and it was in Florida. So that's it, birds and boats.
person folks. The B&B show.
Yeah.
By Beth.
So, hi, my name is Sarah Irwin. Welcome to my active studio. We call this the painting studio. I also carve stone, but we keep that out in a messy shack outside for obvious reasons. Yeah, so I normally work on more than one project at a time because time is so precious, and rather than sit and wait for an idea, my job, I think, is to just show up at the easel. And so that's why there's a lot of projects here that are underway, not finished, close, and sort of just like a revolving Ferris wheel of projects that I put on the easel, and sometimes things stick and sometimes they don't. But the point is to not quit, and that's what I would take on lately as a theme, just to not quit, because it's so easy to sit and do nothing. So that's my working dogma, I guess you might say. This is the most fresh painting right now. I call this an underpainting. So it starts with acrylic paint, which I got at the Red Wagon Studio. Anyway, so it's a fast, almost like a thought in acrylic, which dries really quickly. And then you sort of just build your idea on top of that and paint over things as you go. And then I switched to oil. So this is mostly oil right now, but you can see the purple and the browns are still shining through, and I think the more variety of colors you can squeeze into a painting, the more interesting the painting is going to be, even though it's completely imagined. They're not taken from photos, they're just taken from snippets of memories, because it's our local regional coastline. It's regionalism, but it's imagined. So that's how I would describe the work. And this painting is funny because somebody wanted a painting that had purple, like heather in it, but it had to be a coastline, and they were joking about it on Facebook. So I was like, well, if you're going to joke about it, maybe I'll just try to paint one and see if you like it. So, because normally I wouldn't use so much purple for trees, but so that's the beginning. So probably this will get put away and stared at, or like put across the room and thought about, and then it'll get finished probably in a couple weeks. It's never the same. It's never the same. So yeah, and I paint a lot of trees. I always have. I think the tree is a really important universal symbol, but it's also a very personal sort of icon for me as an artist, or just even as a person. I think it's important to always be growing, and a tree is, there's so many parodies, similes, and metaphors that you can stick with a tree, and they're always different. So I think that's partly why, anyway, I would choose the tree as a theme. Yeah. I think it's called Indiana limestone. It comes from Indiana. It's commonly used for building materials like steps and lintels and construction and building of gardens as well. I like it because it's not really hard on your lungs, like whereas this is Wallace sandstone, which is from Nova Scotia, Wallace, Nova Scotia. They have a really beautiful quarry. It's a beautiful stone to carve as well, but it's full of silica because it's sand-based. And this is more of a calcium-based stone. And it holds detail really well. They both hold detail really well, and they're easy to sand, so it's beautiful material to work with. This is marble. Also, it holds a very smooth edge after much polishing, and it's a lot harder to carve, so it just takes longer. But when you get it to a shiny level, it's quite a beautiful touchable stone that holds its shine, which is nice. So this one needs a base at the bottom. But yeah, so again, lots of unfinished projects, but eventually it comes together and you get something done.
I've been working in pastels for probably about 10 years now. I got hooked on them just doing a course at NASCAD where it was a color course, and they said try, mimic or recreate a master work in the material that they use. So I did a copy of a Degas in pastel, and I thought, oh, this is wonderful. Because it's pure pigment with a binder in a stick. So there's no medium, there's nothing between you and the color. And the colors are wonderfully light fast, and they're brilliant, and I just took to using them. So I have done work in watercolor, I've done a few acrylics, I've done some print work. I like doing print work, and recently I've been doing some mixed print and pastel, like doing a print and then going over it with pastel. And I find that moving between the different media kind of keeps me from getting in a rut. Because even though it's a creative practice, you can get in a rut, And I think the trick is to try and keep your work interesting. And I don't really mean interesting to other people, I mean interesting to me. Because it's very easy, and I think, if there was ever an adjective to describe people who do art, it's insecure. It's so easy to go back to what you know and what you're comfortable with and what other people seem to like, but that can become very unsatisfying after a while. You just feel like you're playing in a little sandbox that you know and you love, but you need to get out of the sandbox every now and again. So I do that by moving between media, between doing print and pastels, and when we travel, I take watercolors with me because they're pretty portable, and you can do that. I always intended to practice art full time after I left my paying job, but everything changed when I built this studio. This studio just made so many things possible, because when you come in here, you're coming in here to do this. You've left the laundry, you've left the dishes, you walked into a space, and this is where the only thing that's happening is making art, and art is important in this space. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with when they're making art, is giving it time, giving themselves permission to take the time away from all those other things that just chew up your life and that you feel you should do. And having a dedicated space, and it doesn't have to be, I'm really lucky that I have this space, which is, I've got light, I've got water, sink, and but I think you need to have a creative space. It can be an end of a table in your dining room, but it has to stay there. You don't have to clean it away every time. And I think that's allowed me to become a more serious practitioner. It's hard to think of yourself as a professional artist or a non-professional artist, because what does that mean? I know very few people, even province-wide, who can actually make a living, a full-time living, just from making art as an individual. So I tend to, but I think that it's more of an attitude. If you're a really serious practitioner, if you engage in trying to improve yourself, try to continual practice with the notion that you want to learn, you want to grow, then I think serious practitioner is a better label than professional or semi-professional, because I don't know what that means. I really don't know what that means in the world of art. So, I have to say that in the last few months, the whole pandemic thing is for artists. I almost think that if they have given themselves that permission to invest in their time in being creative, it's making art is a pretty solitary act. You don't. Some people paint in groups, and I think that's fabulous, because I do think having feedback from other people who are also practicing artists is really important. but the actual making, you're quiet, you're on your own, you have headphones on, but you're certainly not engaged in a socially entertaining kind of environment. So the pandemic kind of, we're all at home, we're all quiet. I find life got much more quiet. There were fewer things, you couldn't go out and do all the things, all those distractions that creep into your life just kind of went away. So in that regard, I've been pretty productive in the last few months. I've kind of gone onto a jag of doing flowers, which I do, and then I walk away from. I do a lot of seascapes. I do marine. So again, push yourself, challenge yourself, do something different.
I'm Mary Jane Lundy. Welcome to Crescent Clay Studio. I'm here today to tell you about my work. I'm a and who I am. I went to NASCAD back in 1994 and fell in love with ceramics. I went to become a painter, and now I do all this crazy, bright colored, under the sea based nature work. And I have been here at the studio for the last 10 years. We built it, and I'm very happy to be here. So off to my left are a couple of large sculptures that I've done in the last 6 months. A lot of it during the COVID time. This is Harry the Seagull and Wally the Whale and Henry the Blue Heron. And then off to my right you can see my seawall and my fish houses. I've been known, when I graduated from NASCAD, I was showing downtown, and I became known as the fish lady and making fish houses. And I still create them today, mostly on request. So I have, so for instance, this fish here is a Atlantic perch. So I got a Atlantic perch from the market, and I made a casting of it. And then I press my clay into it. But before I press my clay into it, I lay a doily. I love doilies and bringing them back to life in my clay creations. So all these textures that you see are imprints of different doilies that I've collected. And when I travel, this is my newfound thing that I collect. I go around and look for antique doilies and then bring them home. And then I figure out a piece that they'll be created with. So that's a perch. This is a laughing jack eel, and yes, they do call them laughing jack eels because they actually look like they're smiling, and of course I do emphasize the smile and I make it more fun, and eels really don't turn that way. This is all about being an artist and being able to modify things to make them happy and fun. So this is a nice haddock fish. And usually I color code my fish by their lip colors. So haddock are always pink and perch are always orange, and same with the John Dories. But if you look, this is the cod. And cods are always red because the codfish lips are always red because in Newfoundland they have this thing called kissing the cod. So I like to put that into my art, that little traditional thing of kissing the cod and keeping their lips red. In my work I use a Nova Scotia local clay. I get it out in Lance through Shaw Bricks Company. And this is what it looks like in its green leather hard state. And these are some fish that I prepared just the other day. And these are not made by mold. So I'm working towards trying to move out of the mold making because they take up more space, and creating things from fish that I know that are in the ocean. Like this is sort of mimicking a little porcupine fish, even though there's no porcupine quills on them. They just have lots of little bumps and stuff. And this is sort of like the John Dory fish being modified. So, and again with the seahorse, making a series of seahorses in different states and sizes. Again, all hand built. This machine you see in the background is my slab roller, and that's my favorite tool, the slab roller, because I put my clay in that, roll it out, and I got these beautiful slabs that I can create many creations with.
So I think this is pretty much done. I'm never sure until the last minute. So I'm also, the way I start is with, I've been taking a new way of starting with putting Xerox transfers on. I was doing collage and screen print first, and then I write on it, and then I get going. But these I just, you can see. So you can see a little better here the photographs that I put on, and also there's some fabric in the photographs. The Xerox I put them on. So up there is another one I've been working on. It's not quite done. And behind it is one that I also have started. I love to work on triptychs and diptychs because the panels can be rearranged and flipped, and I have a lot more possibilities as I'm going along than just 4 sides. There are now so many extra things to do. Is I had just some leftover acrylic paint from painting the sides of some paint, this like here. So I was just scribbling. But generally speaking, I don't use acrylic at all. It's mostly oil bars. So, yeah. Another recently finished piece. Can you see it? And then there's a whole stack here. There's stacks of paintings everywhere. And all those are done. They're triptychs and diptychs. And in the corner here I've stacked. This was a 9-panel piece that went in St. Mary's University Art Gallery a few years ago, and I'm just not willing to separate the 9 panels, although it ends up being quite big, like 9 feet by 9 feet. I stained canvases, cut them up and sewed them together at one point. They were acrylic, stained them in acrylic, and sewed little things in. And that was a kind of enjoyable, and it taught me to be a little more precise because you're sewing. And I was getting a little too loose. And, but then my stepmother kept calling them my hangings, so I said, that's that. I want to paint, and I got back into painting with oils. But I did do acrylic on canvas for a few years. I've tried that. I've tried printmaking and everything. The only thing that I never felt like following through on was sculpture. Although I do like to have a 3-dimensional feeling, like a solidity to my paintings, I've never enjoyed sculpture in the same way that I enjoy painting. This is a stack of very recent. So I'm also at the same time trying out new colors because I don't like to get pigeonholed. Yeah, or even for myself. I like to try new things and see how far I can extend something. I just enjoyed it so much I wanted to put it in my painting. Here's her dancing. And then I put other photographs. In the past I've used things that are like family things or more past. Now I'm trying to move into the future because it's here. So instead of the collage, the screen, the Xerox Transverse act the same way. It's giving me some emotional charge to start with, something that I can really work with on a very deeply personal level. And then I just sort of try to make it so that nobody knows about it, but everybody feels it. I think that's the great joy of abstract art, is the feeling that you respond in your own way. I don't have to tell you.
Most of my subject matter is nature, and it's as intimate as you can get to it. I only use transparent watercolors. I use Arche, both cold press and hot press paper, and the aqua boards. So I generally work in series. It's interesting. This year I was working in water, so hence the fish and the tide pools and things. But each year I generally try to choose. When you've been painting as many years as I have, you sort of like to get the something new. And where we live here is situated. You just look out here and there's the blue heron. He's in and back and forth a couple of times a day. So herons are a very big subject matter of mine, as is turtles, because we are people who have traveled south for many, many years and have swum with the turtles, and they're endangered. So I try to do a series on endangered. That one there is the fishnet you see right here, the turtle. It's called In Danger because even though there are commercial fishing nets available today, they're expensive, and it seems to be that they don't it doesn't matter whether mammals are caught in them or not, because as you know, if a turtle is caught in a net for so many minutes or less, yes, she's my helper, they can drown. They have to come up for air. So. These little series here I did as pollinators because I had done a series on orchids, all those little, so each one of those is a pollinator insect that, yeah, without them we wouldn't have the flowers.
I'm Debbie Smith. This is my studio, The Loft, which is actually a loft, and as I show you around, you'll see there's even a bed here for family when they come to visit. But my studio is my workspace, and this is kind of a tidied up version of the workspace. And I paint with acrylics. I tend to focus on type of painting, and what I used to do are landscapes, but I'm not really into landscapes anymore. I really like flowers. I love flowers. I love color. I love, well, this one is still on easel, still not done, but I love the play between light and shadow. And I really like the soft edges and the hard edges in the same painting. So flowers have been my subject for a while. And I'll just show you a few of the flowers that are in my studio, tell you a little bit about how that happens. So in this corner over here are some recent flowers, the most recent being this one. I painted this one while it was the COVID pandemic self-isolation time, and I really miss being with people, so I call this one Friends and Acquaintances. But no, it's an example of what I'm trying to do more and more of now. I really like bright colors, but this is just a little softer version of this. And I'm liking that. I'm liking where that's going. So I tend to paint a series of flowers, so I get to know the flower really well. And right now I'm painting peonies and hydrangeas. And if you look closely at a peony or a hydrangea, particularly the hydrangea, each little petal is a painting in itself, and it takes a long time. But I really love the results, and I love the softness of it. So for me, flowers are personalities, and they come to light when you paint them. Like this painting is called Unruly, because if you look at that particular flower closely, it's just a mess. Like the petals are everywhere. And this one, I just called it Inside Story because, like Georgia O'Keeffe, I like to paint really close. I like to get close to the bloom so that you don't see any of the extraneous details. You just see flower, and you see the perfection of the bloom and the imperfections too. This is the piece that I'm putting into the Community Enterprise Center show. It's entitled We're All in This Together, which I thought was appropriate. Tulips all squished together, unlike the rest of us. So it's an example of one of the other series of flowers that I did in the study. So I painted tulips last year. I painted, I think, about 20 different tulip paintings, and I did an exhibit of just tulips, which was really neat. I wanted to fill this wall with smaller paintings, so I chose the 12 by 12 and 11 by 14 sizes. And I did have it filled until one sold recently, so I have another painting to do. But that was kind of fun, and I tried to balance the type of flower and the colors. I have been painting since I retired, about 6 years ago, and I didn't know I could paint. No, that's not true. I knew I had an artistic side, but I never painted. And so the acrylic paint allowed me to develop some skills. I've had some great teachers and friends and a couple of workshops and so forth. And I've learned a lot about just playing the paint. I use a lot of layers. So I'll start with this. This is my undertone on painting. And then I'll start to layer. Maybe I'll do backgrounds and then start doing the value study, like that one that I showed you on the easel. So the values, the lights and the darks, and get everything kind of in place. And then begin to color. And so it's a layering process. I use a lot of little brushes. In fact, that painting of the hydrangeas and the peonies that I showed you was done entirely, or almost entirely, with brushes this size. And I used blenders and just smooth the edges, and then a flat brush to create an edge, but it's very, very small. I like doing it that way because the big brushes, even though I have big brushes, I can't get that kind of detail. Yeah, I love painting that.
Hi, I'm Chris Trotter, and I want to welcome you to my kitchen studio where I do my wet felting and needle felting. I've been a needle felting artist for over 10 years, and about 5 years I've been doing wet felting. I want to show you some of the materials that I use to do wet felting. I use bubble wrap, I have my merino wool, and I've laid it out in about 3 layers here. I use a resist when I do 3D objects. I wet down the layout and then I cover it with netting, and then I rub it with my palm washboard, which helps speed up the process of felting. Here are 3 pots that I made with the resist. This is embellished in the middle with a button, and there's fabric that I've used as well that has adhered to the wool through the wet felting process. And this one here is a similar piece that has used 3 resist, and which are cut out through the center when it's done, as well as the one that I've used for the whole thing. So now I'd like to show you my needle felting. So this is my kitchen table, and I'm doing all my needle felting here. I needle felt onto a piece of foam that's quite firm, and I use felting needles. This piece was made through wet felting a piece of fabric on the background, and then I use my needle felting wool, which is quite different from merino wool. It's a lot thicker, coarser fibers that are not all parallel, so it makes it easier to felt the wool down, and which I do with multiple stabs. This has also been embellished with a few sequins, just to add a little more interest to the picture. This is a felt portrait I did during COVID-19 of myself, and it shows some of the junk foods I was consuming too much of. Here we have a picture that I did several years ago. It's done on the background is wet felted. This has silk in it, and then I needle felted the figures and the car and the windows onto it afterwards. So I want to welcome you to and thank you for my little coming to my little studio.
I'm Phil Hodges. I'm an artist. I'm a painter and I work in acrylic. And I'm also a gallery owner. I run 12 Acre Hill Gallery in Seabright. Back in March, the world changed all of a sudden, and a lot of arts organizations, including the Peggy's Cove Area Festival of the Arts, realized that we just couldn't go ahead and commit to our usual events, our usual summer events. And we basically had to put the brakes on everything, and had pretty much given up on seeing much happen in our community over the course of the summer. We were afraid we'd lose the momentum that the festival has built over the past 10 years. And we were really, really fortunate that the St. Margaret's Bay Community Enterprise Center approached us and asked how they could help to get the word out about artists in the community. And as things have changed and progressed and loosened up a little bit, we have been very lucky to become part of this actual physical show, as well as an online show which is being hosted by Red Wagon. And yeah, it's just a great opportunity. Since this summer I won't anticipate opening my my physical gallery unless it's by appointment or to my client base who actually seek me out and want to see my new work. Yeah, so definitely a time of change, a time when a lot of people found it hard to get their creative energy going, just bogged down being home on their own and worrying about so many different things and obsessed with news that was changing all the time. But now I think come July we're seeing some new hope and hopefully a lot of wonderful new work by our local artists, and hopefully a great response from everybody who comes out to see the show.
Hi everyone, I'm RJ Marchand here at my home and my studio and gallery in Black Point, Nova Scotia on the beautiful St. Margaret's Bay. I want to take you on a tour of my studio in a moment, but I wanted to begin here outside because that's really where the art begins for me. It's all about the natural world and the animals in it right here in my backyard. So on the beaches of St. Margaret's Bay and here in Black Point, I'm always looking for an inspiration from a bird or an animal that I might see grazing in my backyard or flying in the trees near my house. And so I wanted to start with that because that's really the beginning of that artistic journey that I'm taking, and I want to take you on. Welcome to my studio. It's great to have you here for this virtual tour of my studio here in Black Point. It's a wonderful place to work. I've got lots of space, lots of inspiration around me, as I mentioned before. I mean, when I come down in the morning, first thing in the morning to have my coffee, this is the view that I'm greeted with every day. So it's hard not to be inspired, frankly. My work, as you can see, is really a combination of abstraction and realism. which for me is, although it's an unusual combination, for me is a really good combination for capturing what I want to capture about the natural world. There's a real free flow to it that I think works well for me. When you come, you can see some of the cards and prints that I have for sale, some of which can be found on my website. And I've been doing some paintings of rocks as well recently, which I'm really enjoying. So this is really where I do most of my work each day. I do some work at the easel and some work here at the table, depending upon the sort of painting that I'm doing that day. So if you come in, you'll be able to see exactly how I work and the tools that I use and the paints that I use. I'd be happy to have you come for a real visit at the studio anytime. You can contact me on my website at www.rjmarchand.ca. And when you get there, you can sign up for my newsletter, which comes out every 2 months, which is full of interesting information about new paintings that I have coming up, inspirations, and some special offers for newsletter subscribers. As well, you can see my work at local galleries like 14 Bells Gallery, which is in the Hydrostone Market, or Argyle Fine Art, which is on Barrington Street. So I look forward to seeing you in person. So please come by, give me a call. We'll set up a time you can come by and we can have a chat and have a cup of coffee or tea and talk about art. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye-bye.